Hi, I welcome you all in Yukt Mind's unique initiative of 10 minutes and newspaper done. In this video, we'll be covering June 21st, the Hindu newspaper. You can download the PDF of these news from our website www.yuktmind.com under Current Affairs tab. You can also download the PDF from our Telegram channel, the link of which is given in description below. Let's get going. In this video, we'll be covering 9 news, starting with China blocks proposal of blacklisting terrorist Sajid Mir. Childline 1098 Adoption of Babies, India's first mRNA vaccine, news on Yoga Day, Semiconductor Fab, contention between Coal India and CCI, lawsuit against Delta Airlines, and finally news on NavFed. China has blocked a proposal by India and the US at the United Nations to designate Pakistan based Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist Sajid Mir as a global terrorist. Mir is wanted for his involvement in the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. Beijing, an all weather friend of Islamabad, has repeatedly put hold on listings to blacklist Pakistan based terrorists under the Sanctions Committee of the UN Security Council. Moving on to the second news, the Women and Child Development Ministry has decided to do away with the concept of NGOs running Childline, that is, a counseling and distress relief helpline for children, which has been attending to children under emergency since 1995. In the first phase, the ministry has merged the 1098 helpline with 112 emergency response support system, that is ERSS, in 9 states and union territories, where operations will start by June end. The others will be on board in a phased manner. The ministry officials said the merger was being done as part of the broader vision of One Nation, One Helpline. The ministry, under the erstwhile Child Protection Services scheme, was supporting the 24 into 7 helpline Childline service through Childline India Foundation, that is CIF, and its partner NGOs. The response time by CIF is about 60 minutes to respond to children's distress calls. The current system, however, lacks interoperability with the police, fire, and ambulance services, which leads to loss of precious time in distress situations. The CIF network could only cover 568 districts, which had left almost 200 districts uncovered under Childline, which is why the decision of merger of Childline was taken. Moving on to the third news. According to the Women and Child Development Ministry, over 2,297 adoptions took place in India in the past 9 months under the amended adoption rules, which came into force last September. Under the new adoption rules, as per Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Amendment Act of 2021, the DMs are empowered to give adoption orders. The act came into force with an aim to prevent court related delays in the process of adoption, which has created a lot of pendency. Apart from this, the act empowers the DMs to independently evaluate the functioning of all the child protection units in the districts, along with the child welfare committees, the juvenile justice boards, and the specialized juvenile police units. Moving on to the fourth news, Gemcovac OM, India's first indigenous mRNA vaccine for the Omicron variant of the novel coronavirus, was approved under emergency use guidelines by the Drug Controller General of India. Now, the fifth news. Besides spreading awareness of the benefits of yoga and meditation worldwide, India will be promoting the skill of its tribal artisans this Yoga Day on June 21st. The Tribal Cooperative Marketing Development Federation of India, that is TriFed, is collaborating with Ministry of Ayush to supply 34,000 yoga mats procured exclusively from tribal artisans across the country. This will bear the distinct designs and motifs representative of their respective communities. This year's theme of International Yoga Day is Yoga for Vasudev Kutumbakam. Now, the sixth news. To set up a semiconductor fabrication plant in India is not mere hubris. There is a growing market. There are also strategic reasons, that is, India's susceptibility to coercion increases due to its dependence on the imports of semiconductors. Therefore, the government's 2022 semiconductor mission is laudable. But today, there is still uncertainty about whether India will have a fab. In this context, it is important to understand why earlier attempts failed and examine alternate approaches. Let us discuss about earlier attempts. The first serious attempt was made in 2007 in the form of special incentive package, that is SIP, but it yielded no response. The second attempt in the form of modified SIP in 2012 fared better. After over 2 years of extensive outreach with practically all the major fab companies in the world, India came close to having a fab. Locations for the fab were finalized and land was allotted, but finally both failed to mobilize resources. Now let us discuss why semiconductor fabrication is important. Semiconductor fabrication represents the ultimate frontier of human tech advancement. The progress of miniaturization is accompanied by higher complexity and cost. As a result, the industry has seen a decline in the number of participants. China started late in the semiconductor fab industry, but backed by massive government financial support over the last 2 decades, it acquired hundreds of loss making fabs from around the world and built its fab industry. Investment in semiconductor fab is one of the riskiest. Billions of dollars need to be recovered before the technology becomes obsolete. This necessitates substantial production volumes for economic viability, often reaching levels that are adequate to meet global demand. It is therefore difficult to conceive of a fab which is based on the domestic market only. Developing an ecosystem for chip manufacturing in a greenfield location is a major challenge. Hundreds of chemicals and gases are required for chip fabrication. People need to be trained and abundant clean water to be made available. There are other issues as well, such as whether to set up a logic processor, memory, or analog fab. An electronic equipment and its functionalities are characterized by their logic chips, which are therefore strategically important and generate the highest profit. The most advanced set of technologies is needed to manufacture them. Analog chips are essential but have the least strategic value. Logic fabs are the most expensive and analog fabs the least. A relatively easier option is assembly, testing, packaging, and marketing, that is ATMP, to get the fab ecosystem developed before the full fledged fab is set up. But ATMPs have little value in terms of actual chip making. So, what can we learn from China? India's strategy has been to set up a new logic fab. China, which has acquired loss making fabs and then set up its own logic fab, provides lessons. Acquiring existing fabs has many advantages. They are reasonably priced, have stabilized technology, a supply chain ecosystem, an established product line, and market. They will enable India to build the fab ecosystem and train human resources. Another strategy could be setting up ATMPs. Now, the seventh news. On 15th June, the Supreme Court held that there was no merit in Coal India Limited, a public sector undertaking, being excluded from the purview of the Competition Act. So, what was the case all about? The chain of events goes back to March 2017 when the Competition Commission of India, that is CCI, had imposed a penalty of Rs 591 crore on CIL for imposing unfair or discriminatory conditions in fuel supply agreements with the power producers for supply of non coking coal. In other words, Coal India Limited was found to be supplying lower quality of the essential resource at higher prices and placing opaque conditions in the contract about supply parameters and quality. So, what did the PSU argue in court? Coal India argued that it operated with the principles of common good and ensuring equitable distribution of the essential natural resource. With this objective, it was secured as a monopoly under the Nationalization Act of 1973. Now, the eighth news. Delta Airlines in 2020 marketed itself as the world's first carbon neutral airline, investing $1 billion on reducing fuel usage and carbon removal techniques. However, a lawsuit has been filed against it, arguing that the airline assertions were bogus, misleading, and false. So, what does the lawsuit say? The lawsuit accuses Delta of misleading customers and its sustainability pledges. Delta relied on carbon offsetting, a shorthand for a slew of ways companies can reduce or remove carbon emissions from the environment. Activities like planting trees, shifting to cleaner fuel, and funding carbon capture techniques in theory balances out a company's carbon emissions. However, the lawsuit against Delta is based on reports that have found glaring loopholes in the carbon offsetting process of Delta Airlines. Criticism includes inaccurate accounting of projects where reductions would have occurred regardless of carbon market involvement, failure to immediately offset emissions, relying on impermanent solutions such as building projects like forests that may be destroyed by natural hazards. So, what are the reasons for the controversy? The offset market has been criticized for appealing to climate consciousness without real effort or impact. So, one line of scrutiny is about the efficacy of offsets in general. Growing evidence shows reforestation as a climate adaptation program is ineffective and misleading. They failed to sequester the carbon in the first place, or the gains made were quickly reversed or inflated, as showed by a 2019 Pro Republica investigation of Brazil. Another concern hints at the moral problem of greenwashing, where big polluters continue to use fossil fuels and opt for a cheaper route to cutting emissions by way of offsets, all while middle and low income nations struggle with climate realities. Experts also argue it lulls people into thinking they are contributing to the environment. One 2015 working paper found that global CO2 emissions would have been 600 million tons lower if countries had cut pollution at the source instead of buying offsets. Offset programs work only when they remove or reduce carbon emissions that wouldn't have been eliminated otherwise, what is called additionality. Proving additionality is a structural challenge, for it is hard to track the genuine progress of activities on the ground. A 2021 paper analyzed the world's largest carbon offset program, the Clean Development Mechanism, and found at least 52% of approved carbon offsets were allocated to projects that would very likely have been built anyway, amounting to a substantial misallocation of resources. So, what comes next? Airlines should focus on decarbonizing commercial aviation with the help of sustainable aviation fuel, hydrogen, and full electric propulsion techniques. But these avenues are predicted to face obstacles as air traffic continues to grow and innovative decarbonizing technologies are far in the distance. Now, the final news of the day. National Bank for Financing Infrastructure and Development, that is NAFID, aims to disburse about 60,000 crore by end of this fiscal. The government-backed infrastructure financer, which began operations less than a year ago, is also looking to sanction rupees 1 lakh crore loans this fiscal to both greenfield as well as brownfield assets in the key infrastructure space. Thank you for watching this video. You can download the PDF of these news from our website www.yuktmind.com under Current Affairs tab. Also, you can download the PDF from our Telegram channel, the link of which is given in description below. Thank you.